So today I'm going to be showing off a bunch of my planes, the Mk.12 series of Kitten Jets, from A to Z. This here is the Mk.12 A, and I'll be able to show off some of the standard features that all the Kitten Jets have with this one. They're all thrust vectoring, no gyros in any of them. Well, there's a gyro stabilizer in one model, but that's different. Most of them have the standard armament of 6 smart cannons and 2 rockets. And the thrust vectoring is always set up in this rather simple way, where there's thrusters attached directly to the servos that move the control surfaces, and then the yaw thrusters are the ones on the wingtips that are fixed in place. Now about this plane itself, it's got decent handling, it's got good roll, okay pitch, and good yaw. Although the way the vertical stabilizers are set up makes it a little sloppier for me to use the yaw in. But yeah, I'll move on quick and get through the early ones to the more interesting ones later. Next up we have the Mk.12 B, which is mostly the same, except it uses a piston glitch to include a bunch more engine power into it. Also, the vertical stabilizers are no longer angled because that was giving me some undesirable roll effect in them. But speaking of roll, this plane has pretty good roll, okay yaw, and not too bad pitch control. It has the standard armament of 6 smart cannons, except minus the 2 rockets. I don't know why I didn't include them on this model. I feel like I could have. And like the last model, it has a very simple form of cruise control, in which you can press down on the D-pad and toggle on the engines all the way. The cruise control evolves over time though, so it'll get better. Then we have the 12C, which has a wider wingspan and less armament with only 2 smart cannons. And don't ask why there's these piston glitches down here. I do not remember why I didn't just fill in the blocks normally. Maybe it's something to do with the drag profile. I don't know. It's been a while since I made this one. But I think that this is more of a recon plane than a fighter, because of the extra wingspan, it glides real well. And the lower armament, it doesn't fight quite as well. And it also has some auxiliary roll in the wings, so despite the extra wingspan, the roll isn't too bad. It's got about the same amount of pitch as the Mk.12 A and B. And there's not much more to say about this one, so I'm going to move on. Next up is the Kitten Jet Mk.12 D, which was my top dogfighter for quite a while. It again has the piston glitch to include a bunch of extra engine power. And unlike the others, those flap wings are not for auxiliary roll, they're for canceling the roll effect from the yaw, or at least canceling most of it. It still rolls a little when you yaw, but it makes it a little bit more stable and simple to fly, not having to manually cancel out the roll. But other than that, it's got the same standard armament, 6 smart cannons and 2 rockets. It's got good handling. And it also has the improved version of my cruise control, which uses an accumulator and up and down on the D-pad to select whatever amount of thrust you want and keep that locked in. You can see the hue light panels on the wingtips and by the cockpit changing to indicate how much thrust is currently being applied. And you can also see the accumulator itself on the bottom, because I believe that it was a last-minute addition. And if you want to try out any of these planes for yourself, most of them are already uploaded to the PlayStation Gallery. Just search Kitten Jet, and most of them will pop up. Any that aren't uploaded already will be uploaded by New Year's, hopefully. I just have a few more kinks to iron out in some of them, and some bug fixes in others. Next we have the Mk.12 E, which is a VTOL. As I'll show you here, the thrusters in the body, most of them have a hinge to toggle down and point in the downwards direction. It doesn't use any gimbals. And yeah, smooth vertical takeoff. And with the thrust vectoring, it's actually quite easy to control in the air without gyros. It does have a gyro stabilizer in the middle that helps control the roll a little bit though, just because that makes it a little bit simpler to fly. So you can only really roll that far to the side and then it corrects itself. But it has the 6 smart cannons and is lacking the rockets because, well, the button I normally use for rockets, L2, is running the downwards jets. I suppose I could have put rockets on this and added them on a different button, but I just didn't feel like it, I suppose. And yeah, not much to look at, a little boxy, but it handles well. Got good pitch, good yaw, and good roll. And it can do all the things the rest of the Kitten Jets can do, plus a little bit more. And backflip into VTOL mode for a perfect landing. Moving on. The Mk.12 F has quite a bit of engine power. It's got a longer fuselage and a piston glitch, doubling it up. It also has a slightly longer wingspan. So the roll is a little slower. The pitch is still pretty good. And the yaw is a little stronger than normal, because the longer the wingspan is with these fixed yaw thrusters, the more effect it applies. And it has the standard armament, as well as the cruise control again. The Mk.12 E didn't have the cruise control either, but from here on out it's almost standardized. Then we have one of my older all-stars, Kitten Jet Mk.12 G. This was definitely my top dog fighter for a long time, even though it looks a little bit smaller and lighter than the Mk.12 D. It has all the same features, plus better handling, and I think even a little bit more speed. It's got the 6 smart cannons and 2 rockets. We've got our cruise control. We also have a bomb bay. And this is the first of my planes to have the sound effect. It was originally a meow from one of my cat-themed builds, but because I've heard it interpreted as everything from a hello to laughter to barking, I use it as a general purpose sound effect now, just to get people's attention and, I don't know, it's something to do other than shoot at people. And if I'm about to crash, or if I'm going in the water or upside down, I can pretend that it's like a warning alarm. Although some of my later planes actually have warning alarms for some things, so this is just one stepping stone along the way. So moving on. Next we have the only non-combat Mk.12, Mk.12 H, which is designed for one thing only, glitch-free speed. It doesn't even have a piston glitch in it. It's just a big stick of thrusters, with the Kitten Jet tail attached to it, and some wings slapped on. It goes just fast enough to break the sound barrier. It doesn't have yaw thrusters because they were giving too much drag, but it does have the pitch and roll thrust vectoring. As you can see, the roll is pretty insane at these high speeds. The pitch is a little bit lacking, but it's not a combat plane, so it doesn't need to do super tight circles. And the yaw is very lacking, because again, there's no yaw thrust vectoring. There's not even landing gear, so belly flop. And now we're entering an interesting era of the Kitten Jet Mk.12 series, because this one and a bunch of the upcoming ones are equipped with what I call bomb bay artillery. They're piston-accelerated bomb bays, and what they do is basically lobs the bombs like artillery shells. You can see they go a decent distance, at least in this version. And yeah, I got obsessed with this custom weapon for a while, so I slapped on a bunch of my planes. This here is the Mk.12 I, and its handling has some things to be desired. The weapons are quite heavy, especially the recoil system. But I suppose I would call these nose bombers more than strike planes, because, well, they're shooting bombs, not large bullets or shells. Anyways, this is only the first of many, so moving on. The Mk.12 J is sporting a much larger variant of the weapon, with twice the number of bomb bays, and combined into two separate pods. So it's still a 4-second burst, but it fires twice as rapidly as before. The plane itself, however, is even more lacking in handling. It has the worst roll out of all the Kitten Jet Mk.12s, and honestly, out of all the Kitten Jets. Being so heavy and so long-winged. It does, however, have pretty good yaw because of those long wings, and the roll isn't the pitch isn't entirely bad. It's just the roll is very slow. But there's no other special features on this one, so moving on. Next we have the Mk.12 K, which has a piston glitch again, and that allows you to see most of the logic for the weapon system here. The bomb bay artilleries require quite a bit of logic timing to make them function, so the whole body is basically packed with logic blocks. And this version of the weapon, I believe is the same as the last one, but the plane itself has much better handling. The roll is slow, but more reasonable. The yaw is just as strong, if not stronger, with some extra thrusters on the wingtips. And the pitch is still okay. Then we have the Mk.12 L, which is a lighter version of the artillery plane, but it does fire twice as rapidly as the previous versions, so it's a 1-second burst of 16 bombs. And shrinking the weapon down made it much easier to have a maneuverable plane, because the recoil system is much lighter in this one. It's got adequate roll, pretty good pitch, and very good yaw. This is definitely one of the more user-friendly of the artillery jets. Now I promise this is the last of the bomb bay artillery jets for now. The Mk.12 M. We're back up to 8 bomb bays on the front, with the same rapid pace. So it's 32 bombs in a 2-second burst. And the plane has much better roll, thanks to auxiliary roll in the wings. Its pitch control is a little lacking, but it has great yaw. And its only downside is it's a little clunky, noise-wise. But I'm sure you've seen enough of these artillery jets, so moving on to regular fighters again. Next we have the Mk.12 N, which was one of my top dogfighters for quite a while, and technically still is, although it's a modified version of it that I'm using now. This one here has all the standard Kitten Jet features, the full thrust vectoring, the sound effect, cruise control. It also has smoke streams you can turn on. And unlike the artillery planes, the handling on this is quite good. We have very good roll, pretty good pitch, and good yaw. Well, okay yaw. It's a little lacking in this model. And we're back to the standard armament of 6 smart cannons and 2 rockets. And yeah, she's also one of the fastest of the Kitten Jet Mk.12s, topping out at about 440 miles an hour. Then we have the Kitten Jet Mk.12 O, or oh my gosh, why is it so big? This and the next few are just extra large because I had a kick for large planes for a little while, like a week or 2. But despite its size, it still has pretty good handling. It's got good roll, it has okay pitch, and pretty decent yaw. It also has 9 smart cannons, with an extra 3 facing in the back, for the, on top of the standard 6 in the front. It's also a bomber, instead of having rockets. It still has the cruise control, and the sound effect. And it also has a trim function on the back of the tail, so that you can fly at a lower speed without having to manually pitch it up. But moving on. Now we're on to the Mk.12 D, which has a small piston glitch in the front. Mostly just for the cockpit, even though it's very bare-bones aesthetics, really. These few were more about just the size of the plane, and keeping it maneuverable at this size, rather than actually looking good, or being sturdy, because those wings fall apart really easy. It has the same armament as the last one. 9 smart cannons, 4 bomb bays, and it has about the same, if maybe a little bit better handling because it goes faster. But moving on. Surprise, surprise, this one's not purple. The Kitten Jet Mk.12 is painted this way because this is my amphibious/aquatic paint scheme for planes. Just to differentiate them, make them a little bit easier to spot in my long list of purple planes. But yeah, it seamlessly transitions from air to water, although this one in particular is much slower underwater. It still has full thrust vectoring underwater though, so the agility is not bad, it's just slow. Very slow. And I just noticed something that I never caught before. You see the guns moving? Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. I guess I've never looked at the underside of the wings while flying this before. Next we have another amphibious plane, the Kitten Jet Mk.12 R, which is a modified version of the 12G. It's got the custom, or not the custom cockpit, but the underwater cockpit pushed in there with the piston glitch. And then the underwater engines are more or less just slapped on, except for a couple that were placed more purposefully. It's got full underwater thrust vectoring. And because it's a little faster, it's actually more usable underwater than the last one, as well as being a smaller target. It still has the backwards firing smart cannons as well. And it has 2 bomb bays. I think that was 2. Yeah, that felt like 2. Yeah, although it's a little heavier in the back end, it can still do all the tricks. Like, yeah. Moving on. Next is the Mk.12 S, which was one of my top dog, well, is one of my top dog fighters still, although this isn't the version I use anymore, and because I made the newer version pretty close after, I'm just going to skip showing this, because now it has a fuel and ammo system in it, thanks to a bunch of logic. Now you'll see the accumulator starts to tick up, that's how much fuel we've used as a percentage. And you can see we've got rather insane handling. I promise, this still has no gyros. I'm rather against gyros in my planes. It just has incredible roll, pretty good pitch, and pretty strong yaw. And we no longer have the backwards firing guns, just because they weren't actually landing many hits and were adding more drag than useful. Still got our 2 rockets though. So back to the standard armament. We've got the smoke trail and the sound effect, as well as the cruise control still. And the cruise control does use up fuel properly. and even running the yaw thrusters uses a little bit of extra fuel. Speaking of the fuel, it's loaded with 250 seconds worth, at full thrust anyways. Because lower thrust uses less fuel, you can go up to like, I would say 7 or 8 minutes before having to land if you're conservative, but at full thrust, 4 minutes. Then we have the Mk.12 T, which, as you can see, has some shields going on for it. Now, I only shielded the top because that's where I was normally getting hit from, and this is mainly a jet to use against weapon spammers. Because I usually use such a limited amount of weapons, I don't like it when people bust out like 50 to 100 power cores worth of lasers on me. So a little bit of shielding really helps with that. And it also has 4 rockets instead of 2, because a lot of times the rockets are what gets the job done. It has the same 6 smart cannons, so I didn't buff that at all. And it has okay handling. It's got good pitch. A little bit slow on the roll for its size and shape. But good yaw. And it has the sound effect and cruise control still. No fuel or ammo systems in this one yet though, because it wasn't quite standardized. And this one probably looks a little familiar because this is the Mk.12 N4, the 4th iteration of upgrades and changes to the Mk.12 N. As you can see, it's now got a hinge glitch in there, some aesthetics, making the fuselage look a lot better. It also has a passcode that you have to enter in order to use the fuel and ammo systems. So that's just a couple of operations in the D-pad, and it's not technically a passcode because you don't have to do them in any specific order. You just have to press certain buttons a certain number of times before the thrusters and weapon systems will turn online. But it has limited fuel and ammo. It's got 250 seconds of fuel, which is pretty much my standard now. I believe I changed this one to having only 50 seconds worth of machine gun ammo. So it's a little hard to tell because it's only indicated by an accumulator. You can see our fuel gauge now goes down from full instead of up, so it's a little bit easier to tell how much you have remaining. You don't have to do the math in your head. And we've got our smoke trail device, our sound effect, our cruise control, all the standard features on the Kitten Jet Mk.12 series. Also, I forgot to mention this one on the 12S, but from now on they also have a proper air brake. If you yaw in both directions at once, it turns off the yaw thrusters, but keeps the tail spread open and slows you down very well. Previously, the thrusters would remain on and cancel out most of the slowing down effect, which I thought was a little silly. So now, proper air brake. Because these limited fuel and ammo jets, they have to land in order to refill. They have a distance sensor on their belly, so they make landing much more important, and honestly it makes the game a lot more fun having to manage your fuel and ammo. Next we have the Mk.12 U, which I suppose I would call a specialty bomber because it has an open concept bomb bay where I can slap in all sorts of things. This version just has some rather standard bombs. They have an altitude fuse and a depth fuse. So, that's the same thing. An altitude fuse and a time fuse, I meant to say. And beyond that, although it doesn't look it, it has all the standard features of the Kitten Jets. It has a fuel system. I don't believe it has an ammo system. No, it does not have an ammo system. So you get your guns and rockets for free in this one, but you only have the 2 main bombs because, of course, they're custom bombs. That's how they work. And with or without the bombs in there, it has pretty good handling. It's got great yaw, pretty good pitch. Actually, the roll has a little bit to be desired. So maybe it's not great handling, good handling. But moving on. And we're in the home stretch now with the Mk.12 V, a light fighter. I'd noticed that most of my Mk.12 series have been very high in the power cores, so I made one that was a little bit more reserved. And in doing so, made the most maneuverable out of the Mk.12s, because smaller with the same amount of thrust vectoring usually means more agile. The roll is almost too much. The pitch is very good. They can basically do backflips in place like a gyrojet would. And it has very good yaw. However, I did shrink the armament. It only has 4 smart cannons and no rockets. The ammunition is limited, however. As you can see, we've got 50 seconds worth of ammunition, and our standard 250 seconds worth of fuel is going. And yeah, this is the Mk.12 V. Small, straightforward, all the features. It's got the sound effect, the cruise control, and oh, it doesn't have a smoke generator. I suppose that's not really a standard feature though. That's just an occasional extra. And now we have the ugliest duckling in the Mk.12 series, the Mk.12 W, which has a box cannon on it. And if you don't know what that is from my other videos, it's a piston-accelerated metal crate dispenser that fires them a lot faster and more power than you can do with just the normal metal crate dispenser. So a box cannon is like that. And a rapid-fire, high knockback, low damage weapon. And it's funny to put on a plane because then you basically just swat people out of the sky instead of blowing them up, although this does have backup rockets to get the job done if you need to. It has a fuel system and an ammo system, although only the main box cannon is limited ammo. I believe it's unlimited rockets in this. Let me just... Oh, no. That's the low rocket warning. I just spammed the button a bunch of times. Apparently I only have 12 pairs of rockets. Oh, that's probably also the first time that one of the warning alarms has gone off this video. Not that you can probably hear it over the music. Anyways, moving on, we're almost done. And actually has the last of the bomb bay artillery jets, the Mk.12 S. Now the wings in particular look a little wonky in build mode, but that's because the piston glitch was giving me quite a bit of an issue in this one. I can't imagine why. So yeah, definitely not winning any looks awards. Another ugly duckling. But it fires 16 bombs in a 1-second burst. And as far as the bomb bay artillery jets go, it's decently maneuverable. It's got okay pitch. It's got great roll. And decent, pretty good yaw. It also has the limited fuel system, although it does not have limited ammo. And it doesn't have any secondary weapons, so there's not much more to say about it. We've got our sound effect, and our cruise control. Although our cruise control apparently isn't hooked up to the lights in the back. That's why this one and a couple others aren't uploaded yet, is because they're very recent and still have some bugs to work out before they're released. Then we have the Mk.12 Y, as in why was the piston glitch so hard to tame in this one? It's technically not tamed, it still breaks about 50% of the time on spawning. So here we go. Yep. Didn't do so hot that time. Or that time. There we go. Okay. So yeah, about 50% of the time the piston glitch just goes absolutely berserk, but when it doesn't, it's basically the speed of the Mk.12 N mixed with the handling of the Mk.12 S, or at least that was the goal of this plan. It has great roll. Pretty darn good pitch. And decently strong yaw. And it still has the fuel and ammo systems all included. So we've only got 50 seconds worth of machine gun ammo, 12 pairs of rockets, and 250 seconds worth of fuel. And we've still got our sound effect and cruise control. And we're still using the same standard armament of 6 smart cannons and 2 rockets. And then last, and actually possibly least, is the petite little Mk.12 D, which doesn't even use my standard double tail, it uses the single tail with pitch and roll on the same servo, just to reduce the weight a little bit further. So that does mean it's easier to shoot off all its control surfaces, which is no good. It's got good roll, great pitch, and frankly an insane amount of yaw. It has just 4 smart cannons, but it also has 2 rockets. And it is fuel and ammo limited. So I do have to change over the display on this one to count downward instead of up, but that shouldn't be too hard. It's just one of the things I've got to fix before I upload it. And yeah, that's about all there is to say about this little guy. Like I said, last and possibly least, but I just wanted to get the series done, and I needed another light fighter in the roster. And now for the honorable mentions. This here is the Mk.12 2-pilot co-op, which literally takes 2 pilots to fly it, because each seat is only connected to half the controls. As you can see, this one only has the roll controls, and it has one side of the yaw, and then if I get on the other side, it only has the pitch, and it has the other side of the yaw. Both sides have access to the thruster though, so I suppose I can technically fly it. It's more just a challenge plane than anything else. Yeah, I believe I even took out the the seat controls. So you can't roll from either seat or yaw from either seat unless it's the one specifically for controlling that. Anyways, moving on. And then there's the one that I made to hate, the Mk.12 N5. I typically don't zero drag any of my builds, and I typically don't use laser blasters, but this one uses both. And it only exists so that I can shut down people who use zero drag and lasers without having to use gyros or anything like that, because this still is a gyro-free build. It's only modified in the weapons and the zero drag from the Mk.12 N4, or Mk.12 N4. And yeah, it's exactly what you would expect out of a zero drag plane. You still have to enter in the task code. And it's got much crappier handling, but can go supersonic. Like, before I hit the edge of the map, it'll probably break 1,000. But it's zero drag, so that's not impressing anyone. And also, this will be the only one that I don't end up uploading, because I don't like to spread zero drag or user lasers. Like I said, I basically made this plane to hate on it. And remember, if you want to fly any of these for yourself, they're almost all uploaded to the PlayStation Gallery, and soon will be. Just search Kitten Jet, and they'll all pop up. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Comment if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Bye-bye now.
PlayStation